Hey, Lee Wolf here, and we are live on Game Face Monday. As always, I have Mr. Richie Bello sitting with me here. And today we have a special guest. That would be Bart Nollenberger, who is an automotive leadership developer and executive director of Maxwell Leadership Team. That was founded back in about 2011, if I'm not mistaken.
That is true.
Has more than 46,000 members in 166 different countries. So I guess they're doing pretty well. Good to see you guys. Before we get rolling on the show, just going to roll a quick clip from our sponsor, Shop Smart Autos. Getting new customers is exciting and necessary, but while attracting new customers is important, retaining your customers creates an unending stream of revenue that keeps your dealership moving forward. Whether you're a marketing team for car dealerships or a dealership yourself, Shop Smart Autos has your retention tool, the VIN Retention Report. Anyone can find out how many cars they sold in a given period of time, but your VIN Retention Report will show by VIN the vehicles or customers you retained and the ones you lost. But that's not all. ShopSmart's technology can show you where your VINs ended up. Did they trade them in at another dealership? Did they switch models? Did they sell their vehicle privately or go to auction? You're constantly spending marketing dollars and time trying to target your current customers, but you could be marketing to customers that have moved on. And now you'll have the power to see where they went and change your strategy to target them in ways that brings them back. Not to mention, you can identify your strengths and weaknesses within the dealership to help lift up your staff and give them the confidence and drive they need to retain and gain your customers. The VIN Retention Report is yours at ShopSmartAutos, 4, dealers.com. It's the most powerful retention tool out there. All right, so that's our VIN Retention Report from Shop Smart Autos, 4, dealers.com. And I say it all the time, it's an unbelievably powerful tool to not only let you see how many vehicles you're selling or how you're comparing to others out there in the marketplace, but you can see the VINs that you held on to and the VINs that you lost, and then see where those VINs ended up so you can target those people and get them back into your dealership. Incredible tool. That's our VIN Retention Report, ShopSmartAutos4dealers.com. And really quick, I'm just going to run a quick clip. We were doing a little research on Bart here, and we found a clip online that kind of just gives an overall feeling for where Bart's coming from.
Where does a coach belong? Should they be ahead of you, clearing the path for you, or behind you just cheering you on? Actually, it's neither. The coach's place is by your side, helping you find your footing each step of the way. Hey, I'm Bart Nollenberger, a John Maxwell Team certified coach. I'm a speaker and I'm a trainer, and I'm passionate about personal development in all its forms. But my specialty is coaching. I get up every morning passionate about coaching because I get to help clients achieve their goals. There's nothing like walking alongside someone as they become the person that they really want to be. And if you have a goal you're striving for, or even if you're just looking for some direction on your way, I want to partner with you in that process. John Maxwell has been one of the world's foremost leadership and personal growth experts for more than 40 years. And as a Maxwell certified coach, I am uniquely and powerfully resourced to help you make your dreams a reality. What does a dream need from you? What do you need to do? Who do you need to meet? Where do you need to spend your time and your resources? As your coach, I'll be here to guide you toward your answers to these questions. And I want to help you make the uncertain certain. Together, supported by proven, effective self-development principles, we will put a plan in place that grows you steadily toward your goal. The greatest investment you can make is in yourself. Let's make it together. Contact me today to take one step closer to your dream.
right. And I hope that was a good enough clip for you there that we found, Bart. So tell us a little bit about where you came from and how you ended up here. I know it's over 40 years.
Yes, but don't tell anybody that. That's our little secret. I had a mother that used to lie about my age. Not just her age, but my age. It tells you something, right? Hey, so yeah, my dad was a car dealer in Toledo. He every Saturday I'd hang out in the service department. Probably not unlike a lot of stories within our industry, but I loved the business. But I have to tell you that I loved it because I loved that my dad was in it. And even though my dad and I weren't super close, I always wanted to be like him, and I was always striving, frankly, to get his approval. Maybe some of us can get that one. I followed in his footsteps. As a matter of fact, I wanted to get into radio and television, but I wasn't very good at college, so I flipped the business. And once I flipped the business, then, of course, that led the way to the automobile business, where I started selling cars pretty young and had some success. So I would tell you, though, the first two jobs I had in the business, I was awful. The third one, I finally got it. And I worked for a place called Kistler Ford in Toledo, Ohio, a long time ago on Central Avenue, in the Central Avenue Strip. And again, the first two jobs, I lasted about 5 weeks total. In this third one, I got it. And Frank came up to me after, and he said, "Bart, I'm so proud of you," which nobody had told me that before. And he also said to me, "I am going to call your dad and tell you what a great job you did if you get Salesman of the Month." So, that's all it takes, right? We need that sometimes, that person. So he lit the fire, and I did. I sold like 10 cars in the last 4 or 5 days and got Salesperson of the Month. And he had made me that promise. But unfortunately, my dad died about 5 weeks into that promise, and he never actually got to tell him. I know I did, but Frank never called him. So when Frank saw me at my dad's funeral, he said, "Man, I'm so sorry, but I guarantee you he knew how good you were." And, that started it, frankly. From then, I said, okay, this is my industry. This is what I need to do. I can excel at this. So I did sales, F&I, sales manager, had my own used car dealership. Then I saw Tony Robbins one day. And that was kind of a game changer because at that point I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to take the principles that Tony talks about and put those into automotive. So I started, frankly, looking for companies that were training companies. And the first one I worked for was a company called Half a Car, based out of Philly, founded by a guy named J. Eustace Wolfington and J.E. Wolfington. And I learned from him for 5 years, and it was like being a GM for 20. The guy was brilliant.
Wow.
From there, I went to a couple other companies and big companies you might have heard of, Toyota, AutoNation, and was involved in putting processes in place there. And then in 2013, I decided I want to shift to leadership because I saw a void in managers training. And I joined Maxwell Leadership and had the purpose to say, this is what we're going to do in dealerships. We're going to teach managers how to be great leaders, not just great managers, but great leaders at home and in the workplace. And I got to tell you, that's when my whole life changed.
That was actually one of my questions was I've always found that in any of the training that I've received, especially over the last 6 years or so, is that the focus seems to be shifting a little bit into the personal lives of the people too, and wellness and taking care of yourself, or else none of it's really going to work.
Yeah. You know what? There's a whole topic there, isn't there? Because nobody wants to talk about mental health in the car business, but I'm a mental health coach, and I am a mental health coach because I have a master's in stupidity and a doctor in dumb. And because of those two things, I've learned what not to do. And today, I'm a believer. I'm a person of faith. By the grace of God, I've got I do have over 39 years of sobriety and almost 40. But I don't tell that to impress anybody. That's not impressive. That it really isn't. But what I know is I know what people within the industry have been through. I've been through, unfortunately, brokenness where I was married more than once. I was a bad husband at times. Today, I'm an incredible father and incredible husband. So who I am today is not who I was then, but I get it. I get these guys work 60, 70 hours a week, and they go out and get drunk afterward just to play. And and they don't get to talk to anybody. So part of what I do is tactical, of course, but the other part is also personal.
Wow. Pretty important stuff, huh, Richie? I mean, training is your...
Yeah, well, the whole thing that he said something there, Bart, you're certified to be who you are. You're the top-notch sales guy out there, and you're the top-notch leadership. Do you know what makes you that in my eyes? A, that you used to drink. B, that you got divorced, so that means you're a really good car guy. and wait, this is important. You've always had to be the leadership in you. It's just when we were younger, we didn't have the same type of head because we all lacked that experience of life, right? What we have today, right? I made plenty of mistakes like that too. I'm also not with my wife, right? But the whole thing is that makes you a leader. Lee Iacocca said a very long time ago that the reason he got into the automotive industry was because it made a lot of leaders. And how you become that is through the rough road that's ahead of you in the car business, because it is rough, Today is not like that. Today we got a whole different world. But when we were doing it, it was kind of a rough industry. And that's what we all loved about it, right? That it was that rough. So you really knew, really had that. And it made a lot of the leaders, a lot of big leaders today in the automotive sector, and some that are retired already that were tremendous leaders in major companies, is because of that structure, because of what happened, and you're amazing. I've seen a lot of stuff. By the way, I reached out to you because I was told, he's really good at what he does. And when I realized that, and then I started doing the intel about it, I says, yeah, he's really, he's really good at what he does. I'm going to reach out to him personally and get him on the show.
Thank you, Richie.
And I'm very, very impressed. So in today's world, right, I listened to this video you were saying something about the desk manager, right? And you were saying something to them. That's part of your stuff. Saying something a part of the desk manager leaves or gives you 2 weeks notice, and then he trains the new desk manager. That's very interesting. Could you go over that?
I believe that, again, what happened, and I will do that, and I'll try not to take it too long and answer for a short question, but thank you again for the kind words. And I believe that we don't know what we don't know, right? I mean, I believe there's a lot of great managers out there. I think there's a lot of great dealerships, but unfortunately, if we look at the Pareto 80-20% rule, 80% are probably struggling, 20% are excellent. 20% of those who are excellent make 80% of the revenue. I believe that's really the case. So at most dealerships, who does train our managers? Well, if a guy or a girl gets promoted from finance, the person sitting next to him is training them. And in most cases, whatever they know is what they're going to train. They don't ever put them through and I hate the word training. Okay, Eustace Wolfington used to say training is for dogs. I'm a coach, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I think that's an overused word too, but I'm a catalyst. I'm a change agent. I help people shift, change everything. And what we found was we had to have content that would be consistent. And what we did, frankly, when I looked at managers, I said, how can I add the most value? And how could I help them change their thinking? And we started with a DISC behavior assessment. We've all heard of them. We've all done them. But it was a game changer because it allowed us to look at not how do we hire somebody, but do we know ourselves? Because you and I can't grow ourselves if we don't know ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, guys, when I was 22 and I was a hot shot at a car dealership, I was a narcissistic jerk selling a lot of cars. I looked at that disc assessment and I thought, oh, that's the reason I'm who I am. And it was this unveiling of an awareness. As I look at it 40 years later and I take a peek at it, I think, yes, that's who I am. And what that does helps me know who I am so I can also be a student of knowing who you guys are. So when I know my people, when I know myself and I know my people, I know how to communicate better. I know how to motivate better. I know how to listen better. I know what questions to ask better. Look, I'm just going to tell you, you might have heard me say this before. I have a friend who gave all of his girlfriends disc behavior assessments before he would date them to see what he had there, right? And he went through a lot of bad discs, but he finally found one. He didn't have to date them for 5 months to figure it out. He found one who thought, man, maybe this is my girl. And he started dating her, and they became married.
Right.
Wouldn't that be, what a great idea? Why wouldn't we do that with all our people? So we start with that. Then we look at where is everybody as a leader? And, we can go into that, but we don't have all day. So there's 5 levels of leadership Maxwell talks about. What we want to do, the men in this room, we want to develop leaders to be great leaders. And we want to develop leaders that develop other leaders. That's when stores explode.
Right.
And how do you do that? Through coaching. And what's that really mean? That you've got what's called an activation mentality. Mm-hmm. Now, what's that? Well, I coined it. I kind of like that. It means I'm getting you to think. I'm getting you to think and come up with the answers yourself. The quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions. When you and I ask great questions, we get great answers. Great leaders ask questions of their people to get them to come up with the answers so the processes stick. Mm-hmm. So we knew them by disc, and then we started figuring out what we wanted to do, be a level 4 leader. And then we said, to do that, we need to ask great questions. We need to listen. We need to activate their thinking. That's when change happens. So to answer your question, a manager sitting next to you cannot do that, right? Who can do that? A third party who comes in, who looks at it differently. Last thing. Last boot camp I went through, a GM, and they're very successful, runs 2 stores, has had a great career. And he said to me, one thing that happened was, yes, I'm a better leader because I went through the boot camp, which is, I've got a boot camp that's 12 weeks. It's an hour a week. He says, yes, I'm better because I went through it, but where I'm really better is at home. He said, I learned to be better with my wife.
Yeah.
And to me, got to say it humbly, that makes me just have all kinds of joy. That because happy employees are productive employees. Happy wife, happy life. Happy employees, profitable organizations.
Yeah. And that's you passed on it briefly a moment ago, and I find, and Richie, I don't know if you're in agreement with me on this, but I feel like a major problem that's blanketing the whole country, if not, I'm sure, other portions of the world, is the active listening part of the sales process, the home process. Even at home, active listening is, I'm a good listener, and I absorb what people tell me, and I can talk to people about their problems, and I'm just naturally built that way. So sometimes I think I expect that from the world, to be active listeners and understand where I'm coming from and my feelings. And to me, that can make you the best salesperson in the world, when you're obviously solving problems for people or connecting them to the products that you're selling. If it's a vehicle, boom, you understand there's a baby on the way, there's a kid with them, they're going to need another seat, they're going to want those cup holders, they're going to want whatever it is, the safety features and the thing. I feel like that part of people's lives has just dissipated. And I don't know if is that technology, is that what's going on?
Well, I'm going to engage a little bit here. So let's first talk about the the desk guy getting trained by the other desk guy.
Right.
The biggest problem that I see, and years ago they were doing it, they're currently doing it now. I'm in dealerships in and out, and they're always doing that, okay? The biggest thing that I see is they get their top salesperson that sells 40 cars and lands them on the desk. Because he sells 40 cars, they right away think
He's management.
that guy is going to run the desk and bring up the numbers. They just lost 40 cars. That guy, within 60 days, I'm going to call him a 60-day wanderer. He's out because that's not what he likes. It happened to me, by the way. Okay. I hated being a manager, and I'm no manager, and I'm none of this bullshit that people think I am. I hated that. I'm just a salesman. Okay. Happened to me. I hated it for it. Now, let me now engage to the other question that's more important here about the listening. Sales guys, I don't consider myself a car guy. I consider myself a people guy. You ask a question, right? When a sales guy's asking you a question, he's really not listening to you as much as you think he is. He's watching your reaction. In the reaction is where that guy is banging out 40, 50, 60, 70 cars today and 90. That guy knows how to read people. Mm-hmm. That is a skill. That is a talent. Apart, because you got to filter in your ear whether that person is giving you an excuse or an objection. Mm-hmm. And it's based on his reaction what it is. And a sales guy that delivers more than 40 cars a month knows how to do that, has a master's in that. Mm-hmm. Period. Okay? End of story. That guy's got a master's in that. And that's the difference. Right?
And I would say to that, that's an anomaly. I mean, there's not many 70 car month people out there. They're out there and they're fantastic.
There's two of them.
They aren't just men, because women are much better listeners than men. Right? So women in most cases have a better capacity to do that. But taking it into the leadership piece, you and I cannot lead others until we can do all those things that you said.
Right.
And yet, why is it that the 70 car month person does make a good manager? Because they know how to read people to get what they want in a sales environment. But do they know how to lead other people in that and so that they grow and become better humans, right? Do they know how to lead people so that they can make their own decisions? See, I've been through a lot of therapy, man. I just have. And one thing about every therapist that I've had that was good was they shut up and they listened. We get all that. But also they got me to talk, and they got me to, by the end of the day, thinking, I think I should do this. Very seldom do I remember a therapist saying, Bart, I think you should do this. No, I walked through the car, got in the car, and thought, I've got an idea. I'm going to do this. Right. Guys, anybody else is listening? Ladies, that's when you can develop a capacity to trigger in their head where it's their idea. You'll never have somebody not following through with what they said they were going to do because they own it. Right. See, here's what you and I know. A man or woman convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. Mm-hmm. And we wonder, why is it that Leroy and Leanne don't listen? I've got to tell them 20 times. It's because you told them you didn't activate their thinking in it. Leanne, when you walked up to that customer and they said they weren't going to buy today, what was your response? Well, I kind of lost interest. Okay. How do you feel that the customer was affected by that? Well, maybe they saw that in me. Okay. If they saw that in you, do you think they still wanted to spend time with you and in any capacity? Probably not.
Right.
So what you're telling me is when you got disconnected from the customer might have sensed it and it might have hurt your relationship. Yeah. So what I mean by that is just a small little example. We could do it with 100 of different examples. She knows she didn't do it because I said, Leanne, when you got disconnected, the customer disconnected.
Right.
She came up with the idea. See,
Right.
that's where we as activators, that coach, that's where everything happens. And see, hopefully the culture that we want to put into dealerships is whether it's the GM, the owner, the GM, all the way down, everybody does coaching. Everybody spends time coaching somebody. And because of that, there's this coaching activation mentality going on in the dealership. And if you want performance to increase, that's when performance increases by the time we spend in that one-on-one environment with 15 minutes a day for an individual. You'll change their life.
Right.
Last thing, 4 questions that I ask myself every day. Number 1, what did I do right today? And I teach that. I teach that to people that I coach. Ask yourself that question, not what I do wrong, because 80% of the people suffer from low self-esteem. Trust me, they got no problem telling you what they did wrong.
Right.
What I do right today, change your thinking, change your life. Change your other than conscious, change to and make it conscious, everything changes. So what I do right. Next one, what did I learn? Learners are earners. Next thing, what must I change? When you and I ask those questions every day, when I ask what must I change, my brain's going to say, Bart, you must change this. When we must, we will. And then lastly, what's my role in this? When things don't go the way that I'd like them to go, what's my role in that? And when I ask those questions, I get great clarity. Quality of our life determined by the quality of our questions.
Richie.
Go ahead. I was just answering something.
Yeah. So, the 4 examples given there, four things to ask yourself every day. That kind of that's not something that I practice. Actually, I always think about where did I go wrong,
Right.
and the first thing I do is where did I go wrong, and how do I fix what was wrong.
Right.
Which obviously noble thing you want to fix, but not. I don't think about the things that I did right. I think about that's done. I did that right, and then and it's interesting to focus on the positive things that you accomplished first.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Lee? Think about this, man. Your brain does not have any problem telling you what you did wrong.
Yeah.
Whether you call it the enemy, whether you call it your dark side, whether you call it the shadow, whatever you call it, it'll tell you.
Yeah.
I don't need to ask. It's like, again, ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer. Why am I so stupid? You'll get the answer. The point is this. Let's get down to what we're talking about here. We're dealing with people. Every human being on the planet, again, suffers from how they talk to themselves.
Right.
If we have success, we're talking to ourselves in success. If we don't, we're dooming our vocabulary. So how do we change it? By refocusing on the questions we ask. Yes, right? We all get that. And what we know is 80% of the people suffer from low self-esteem, whether they're managers or anybody. We all get that. So if you and I can have a high self-esteem, high self-worth, we believe in ourselves, we talk to ourselves in an empowered vocabulary, we're going to have better results. Whether we're
about that,
why the general manager.
And that's a good one right there. That's a good one. And I'm sorry before what we were saying was, I always look at what's right about a person so I can maximize it, because that's where his talent is and not what's wrong. But you just brought something up very important, that weak self-esteem. That comes from the dealer. You know why? Because if you're a new vendor and you go out there and try to sell a product, they doubt you. When somebody's doubting you, they're not really doubting you. They're doubting themselves. So that negativity rolls downhill in the showroom. And that's where your opportunity is and my opportunity. I've convinced more dealers on any product that's brand new that nobody knows to get it. Whether it works or not, I don't know, but to get it, because they always doubt it, and they'll always will, because what they do for a living is that they don't have the value of what they really believe in. I'm selling somebody a car. I'm proud of selling somebody a car. They don't want to do that. To them, that's like bad. And that's where that self-esteem comes in. And when you have a self-esteem problem as a dealer or as a manager, that rolls downhill. Just like the most important thing that you have is that leadership. Because do you need another sales trainer to teach about sales? Do you need another sales trainer to teach about BDC? Please. There's so many of them. There's so many of them. But there ain't a lot of guys out there. This is why I reached out to you, Bart. There ain't a lot of guys out there that can put a group of people that need leadership training in a camp like yourself, that they come back all fixed and cured. And you said something. You were 30-something years. You're straight for 30-something years. That's strong because, and you said another thing, you've been around psychologists and all this stuff, right? Me, myself, I had an opportunity to work with one. His name is Dr. John Menarchik. Okay? I worked with him since I was 25 or 26 years old. I had that luck and that blessing, and I learned a lot from that man. And talk about leadership, forget it. Never seen anybody like him. I worked with him for a lot of years. That's one important thing. You having that background, you paying attention, and you're a very, very in-tuned, intelligent guy, paying attention to like a focus group. You start developing that as you're leaving the alcohol habits. You start developing that because your neutrons are very, very strong. Clinically, you're ready to take that in like a sponge. You just got reborn. As you're leaving that and you're going through that, your mind is wide open like a can of tuna, okay? And you're a right brain type of guy, so it's really wide open. Now you're developing that as you're getting healing, as you're healing. So your own mind is healing you inside. And now you've developed something that is like talent like you never seen. And you always had it. You had it raw, but you brought it out by yourself. So what does Bart do? Bart has a good understanding of Bart. You see, you spend so much time with yourself that you got to understand Bart. And that you can make, even if you tried it, that you can train, that you can do nothing. And when I saw you and they told me to reach out to you, nobody told me your story. And I'm saying it here because the guy that told me to reach out, two guys told me, see if you can figure this one out. And I was watching you and I knew it. I knew something there. And now that you're in the live show, I understand more or less. Right? Get it now. And that's why that boot camp is very strong. Dealers, if I were you, I would get all my team, every team that I have, and I would put it, including the BDC teams, right? The internet people, because he has it down to a science. He's really a scientist in leadership.
Well, wow. Man, I feel like I want a 3-second man hug there, buddy. That was just really good. So I gotta tell you something. During COVID, God hit me with this thing. How am I going to make the biggest difference? I'm all about making a difference, and I'll just land this. But he told me focus on one topic. What's the topic that I can focus on more than anything else in the business sector? And he came to me with Develop the Leader Within You 2.0 by John Maxwell. Great work. And in that work, I do boot camps on this, right? I mean, I'm looking for the book as I'm talking to you. So I'm going to throw this aside and go against the etiquette and just pull this out. But in this book, there's the first chapter is on influence. The second chapter is on priorities. The third chapter is on character. The fourth chapter is on self-improvement. I mean, come on. 10 rich chapters, right? So what happens is I've got 5 or 6 people max in the room from a dealership. We get together once a week and we go through a chapter, but it's not a book study. I'll say, hey, Lee, what did you pick out about this chapter and character that has to do with who you are as a person? It's not a book study. It's the topic, but it just gets us to talk. Hey, Richie, you're a parts manager. What did you see about priorities that you're going to put into place to run the business? Hey, in terms of problem solving, Billy, what did you see in problem solving as a GM that you're going to put in place that helped solve this specific problem? And what is it? So it gets us to think. But here's the part that just changed my life, guys. I'm serious. I get emotional. It wasn't just group scale nicely, right? It was the one-on-ones. And those don't scale as well, frankly, but I've changed as a human because I've had an opportunity. Right now, I've got 25 one-on-ones I do every week. That changes me dramatically. And I find out so much, Richie. You said you found out when we went live. I find out so much about the soul of a human by hanging out with them once a week when we've got no distractions.
Right.
None, right?
Yeah.
And it's changed me. And frankly, I know it's changed them. And nobody else does it because they're so worried about scaling that nobody does what I'm doing. So my biggest thing is I have to figure out how to get more and more and more. And it'll probably be bigger groups, but the one-on-one will never go away. If somebody wants help, the one-on-ones are critical. And that's what I don't like to say the word preach, but we influence for the leaders to do one-on-ones with their people at least once a week, because that's when connection happens.
Right.
When you find Jimmy's got a little bit of a heroin problem on weekends, if you don't deal with that, believe me, Jimmy's not telling anybody. And if you don't help Jimmy, you're going to lose Jimmy. Right. And I believe that's our responsibility as leaders too. It's not just about the people. I mean, the process, it's about the people. It's not the X's and O's. It's the Jimmys and the Joes. That's when we go to the next level as leaders. Believe
you know what? You made a point about one-on-one. So let's go back to history. Let's talk about a company called, I'm pretty sure you know them, the Nicholson Group, right from Ohio. You know them?
I've heard of them, yes. Because
Stephen Nicholson passed away. So in my early 20s, one of the dealers that I worked in that pushed me to be a sales manager, and I hated it, right before I left the showroom, brings me in this company. And one of the things, there was no CRMs back then. There was Reynolds and Reynolds called Sales Vision. Remember that?
Yep.
Okay. That was a CRM. That consultant company I became really close with, and we did a lot of stuff together. And that's what got me out of the showroom environment. The one thing that why their process was a game changer for the time, was the one-on-ones. Every day you had to go with the salesman. The manager had to go and sit one-on-one with him. After you were done with him, you had to do one-on-one with your F&I guy with the heat sheet. Remember that? The heat sheet? Pink, dead, and yellow delivery. That was the company that did that. The Nicholson Group. Stephen Nicholson passed away.
By the way, I know Dr. John, and I love Dr. John. I don't know if you knew I knew him.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, an incredible soul. Yeah. Haven't talked to him in a while, but talk about a charismatic leader. He's brilliant.
On YouTube, he was one of my first mentors, that I had, and I met him through the Nicholson Group. Okay.
Yeah, right on.
And then the whole thing with Reynolds and Reynolds, and the whole thing with the Pole Company. Okay. So he was my main mentor. Yeah. And you see my YouTube right on there with his live show and me and him talking about it. But anyway, I was with them quite some time, and then I went to his company, right, when he bought it back from the Pole Company, and there also, right, in Michigan. So is a very important thing. He was one of my first mentors. I learned a lot from him, a lot of things, and he's a tremendous, and you're like, just like that. Dr. John is really, really good because he knows how your head works.
Mm-hmm.
He knows whether you're right brain or left brain, right off the top. He knows right away. He doesn't have to do that test. He only does that test to make money. That's what it is. But he talks to you for 1 hour. 1 hour. He's got your brain figured out, and he knows what ticks you and what doesn't.
Yep.
And he stays away from the thing that ticks you that can get you all twisted and forget it. That's what he's got. You have the same thing, only you had to learn it and you had to develop that skill to heal yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So that is the same type of guy, the same type of person, right?
Yeah.
So when you meet somebody like you, because of the exposure that I had with Dr. John, right? I was with him a long time. I was a kid when I was with them, man. I was 25, 26 years old. And, when you're that young, you start picking up stuff real quick. I don't pick up anything anymore. I have to go out of my way to pick up stuff. Like the paper on the floor, I got to go out of my way to pick it up. But when you're a kid, you pick up stuff like, you're sleeping and they're talking to you in a hotel room. A couple of guys are talking and you hear stuff. Boom, and you pick it up and you master everything you pick it up, and it's your neutrons. It's just the way you are, right? With him, that's what he's about. And you're the same type of guy but you are really, really, it's impressive because you healed yourself. Usually when people are like that and they've been so many years sober, they really had to master how to heal themselves. And you're a man of faith. So the other thing that you have is you have that peace, right? You're at peace with yourself because you have a good understanding about yourself, right? So what happens with that? Oh, that's really awesome because now you're bringing that knowledge and everything you've learned to heal yourself. You're passing it on to somebody else.
Yeah.
And you're at peace. So your delivery is really good because remember, we're all messengers.
Yeah.
That's what we are. That's one of the main things that we are. We're all messengers, right?
Yep. Yeah. Everything speaks.
And now you have that. Everything is like API'd in. Let's say everything is API'd in. So you got all the right tools that are clicking. And that's why I wanted to talk to you because I knew there was something else. I've been following you for quite some time. If you look at your TikTok and all that, I've been following you. And if you look at the average thing, I've put the average way up there because I have to repeat what I'm seeing because I know we only retain 30% of what we see. I'll do it one day and I'll go back the second day and the second day or the week after, right? I've been following you for over 2.5 or 3 months before I made the phone call. So I have a good understanding of you, but I also have a good understanding of your brand. And now I really have a good understanding. That's why I said I wanted to do a podcast with you.
Thank you, man. I do have to add something, though, okay? It's not me self-healing. None of this would have happened without my Lord Jesus Christ. And again, if that offends somebody, then find something. I wrote a book, and the book is called Keep the Change, which says this. It says, using the 12 steps to become a better leader in every area of your life. The book's called Keep the Change. I have a podcast called Keep the Change, but here's the deal with it. The first step is admit. We have to admit, and this is true, and it doesn't, you don't have to be an addict to admit. There's something everybody in this room needs to admit. I admit, in my case, I was a drug addict. I admit it. I was powerless over it. That's true. You might sit here right now and say, I admit I'm not being very nice to my dogs. I admit that my wife and I are struggling. I admit that my salespeople just piss me off, if I can say that here. I admit it. Unless you admit it and get it out, it ain't going to have a chance. Number 2, believe. If you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything.
Right.
And so we got to believe. And sometimes it's just believing in ourselves. But I believe AA tells you, and I went through a lot of AA, and I have a higher power. For 10 years, I didn't know what my higher power was until he got thrown. He took me and showed me who he was. And he is Jesus Christ in my world. Again, you can be offended at that, but I'm just telling you what happened to me. Today, I have 10 kids. My wife and I are blended. Today, I have 12 grandkids. I have one twin that's going to have a grandkid in November and another one that just found out he's going to have a grandkid in 8 months. I am blessed beyond measure. Is it anything I've done? Absolutely nothing. I'm from Toledo, dude. I went to Toledo Public Schools, right? It's grace bigger, but it's also seeing the light, being grateful for everything, and knowing that any human being can change. I work with a lot of people that say, I don't want to change. And what I know is that if they want to change, they're going to change. Not because of anything I said, because maybe about something I asked them that triggered something to get them to say, man, I don't want to be sick and tired anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So whether it's in that recovery world I live in or the dealership world I live in, the process, the steps are still the same. What do you need to admit in the dealership? What do you need to believe in? Who do you need to believe in? And number 3, make a decision. What decision do you need to make today to say, I'm doing this today? As the Bible would say, pick up your mat and walk. What decision do you need to make today to change your life? Maybe it's called me. Maybe it's called Richie. Maybe it's called Lee. I don't know. Maybe it's to knock on your neighbor's door and say you're sorry because you peed on their grass back when you were a teenager. I don't know. But what is it? Make a decision. That's when our lives
make a decision now.
Now.
You need to change. Change is good. I'm very, very uncomfortable when I'm comfortable. That's a fact. I got 4 or 5 different things going on all the time. You can ask Lee. Sometimes I spin them, I spin Gene, I spin everybody because I have to keep going. I can't be doing something that I'm comfortable already. All right, that's it. It's figured out. So what's next? Because it's not about anything. Money is important, but it's not really about that. It's about making a difference. Why? Because we're only going to be able to take with us making a difference. I can't take a check with me. I can't take a car with me. I can't take a house with me. But touching people, I'm going to take with me. And also the people that I touch that don't like me, that I'm going to take too. They're actually going to be longer, okay? So it's about touching people, making a difference, whether it's a good difference or a bad difference. It doesn't matter. It's making that difference. It's important to make the good difference, but I'm saying the difference is what's important, right? Because everything else we can't take with us, but we're going to leave our memory, and you can leave our memory for a long time. Jackie B. Cooper passed away how many years ago? We were all the students, right? There's kids that are in the car business today that still talk about him. Bob Cohen from Ohio. There's still people today that talk about him. There's cassettes out there. There's, there's all kinds of stuff out there. I have his whole library. Okay.
Yeah. Amen. That's good stuff.
I have Bob Cohen, was a personal friend of mine. He had bone cancer. I went to Ohio twice to see him. Okay. And he was a really good trainer. Whole different trainers than they are today. Okay. And you know what I'm talking about, Bart. And today I've learned from these younger kids. You got a kid there, Anthony Angola, one of the best BDC trainers that I have ever seen, that didn't even do BDC, didn't even do anything in sales in the car business, came outside of that business, okay? He is unbelievable. I know him since he started his own business. I've been engaged with him. He's been on my live show plenty of times. I always knew that guy was good. And I always knew that guy was going to be a leader. I always called him all the time. Frank J. Loops, when he came in, I told him on LinkedIn, he still has the old message. And I told him, you're a good communicator. You're a good trainer. Always did. From day one. We've been around so long with the people that really trade us. They're not around no more, man. You know, people don't know. They don't understand what we've been through. And that's why we got stressed out. And that's why we drank, we did drugs, and we did whatever we did. And we wouldn't even want to go home because you're questioning yourself whether you should go home, right? When you leave that manager's office, you're selling that guy. And if you're not selling him, that manager's telling you, good, I'm going to go. And when I'm done, this guy's going to go. When I'm done, I'm going to go. There are 5 or 10 people that are going to sell this guy. And God forbid he leaves the keys to the manager. They go up on the roof, and he's got to leave with the car now. Oh, you talk about a stressful situation. How are they not going to break you and make you a leader? That's what I dealt with. You know, I'm pretty sure Bart did the same thing. It was a whole different thing. There was no CSI. You know,
it's about the world is, man, I don't know if it's my mind or whatever, but I am mad. I'm really mad. And I'm mad because I make a difference every day.
Right.
That's what it's about. Right. Yeah. And I am a servant. I'm about how many people can I serve? You know, I stopped counting the money and I start counting how many people am I going to serve. So I've got 50,000 people that I want to influence in the next 2 years. That's my number. And is it realistic? Of course it's not. Shoot for the moon, hit the stars. But I believe that it'll happen. So how can I influence people? And I don't mean, you know, they've got to know the Bart way. No, I don't care about that. I want them to know their way, to be the best people they can be at home and in the workplace, to be great with their kids, but also be great with Jimmy that's just struggling, and help Jimmy get to a place where he's got financial peace, right? Right? They might not want to make money, but we all want, I mean, because, you know, we all hear that money is not the big thing for young people. I don't believe that. I believe they have a different picture. They want time off. How do you get time off? By having financial responsibility, right? How do you get, you want money? Money isn't important to you. You call it peace. We will show you how to get peace. You just call it something different than maybe we did 50 years ago or 20 or 40 years ago, right? So my point is, how can I make a difference today? How can I change lives today? How can I make sure that I help somebody become the best they can be today, and that they have hope, that they've got a future, and they don't feel like this is just a job. And if I can have leaders that can develop other leaders, I know they will have hope, because it's outside themselves. It's not about them anymore.
Pretty incredible. Mr. Bart Nollenberger, it has been a pleasure having you here today. And it sounds like the Maxwell Leadership Foundation and you have a pretty unique perspective on how to, and I'm sorry to use the word train people, but it feels like you said, it's more of a coaching, opening up doorways in their minds to have them, you know, come to their own realizations and training themselves almost. Yeah. Pretty incredible stuff. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Richie, as always.
Thank you, Richie.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks a lot, Bart.
It was so fun.
Really look forward and getting more communication with you. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you so much. God bless you.
You guys too. If anybody needs any coaching, you know where to go. We love to just hang out and talk about it. We'll do it absolutely free. We'd love to talk and see how we can serve.
We got to go after Bart if you need coaching, because he's got the metrics and he healed himself as he was doing it. So now he's really he made an AI machine. That's what he did, guys, okay? Because you need data for that. So he's got the data. He's got the AI. Now he's AI. He's like a human chat GPT, I would call him. Why?
Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.